a predominance of positive actions. Like in my case, use the example of mine, all the same. At the time of our past death, the strong, virtuous main karma ripened, which was as a result of enormously strong virtue, strong morality, non-killing, non-harming, non-lying. That particular seed is what causes a human birth. So from the Buddhist point of view, a human birth, I mean, we mightn't be the ants' pants. Look, the humans make a mess, you know, but at least as humans, we have access to intelligence. Would you agree? You can make choices, hopefully, empathy, compassion, you know. But if you look at an animal, see, what's interesting, Buddhist psychology refers to all beings. And if you look at animals, they're exactly the same as us. They get jealous, look at the anger, but they don't have too many brains, we can put it, the way we use brains, you know, they can't put two and two together. No matter how clever the animal is, some are quite intuitive, you can see this. But we can really see that they can't access much of the virtue. And that's really the Buddhist point. So you get a human birth because of virtue. You get an animal birth because of predominance of ignorance or attachment or anger or harming or killing. So, yes, of course, we're going from life after life changing. You know, that's why the Buddhist view would say that. And it's not punishment, no one's doing it to us. And there's also there's also like the creatures, the tiny baby ones, the fish in the ocean, and there's many sentient beings that we can't even see, like spirits and this kind of, you know, the way Buddha's saying. Okay, so what we were talking about, Buddha's view, so just giving an overview again. Buddha's view is we've all got this potential to develop our marvellous qualities and to lessen all the neuroses. And it's a very distinct model. Like I said, in the West, we think they're all normal, and you know we can see that some causes suffering. As long as you're not too berserk, you're okay. But the Buddha's view is more dramatic. He has found from his own experience that we can get rid of these states of mind, and this is very much why we have to. You know, so the first level of practice, which is what I'm getting at here, is you can't begin to look into your mind very deeply, you know, if you're berserk with your behaviour. You've got a child who's going completely berserk with anger. You tell them to sit down and look at their mind. It's like a joke. Not possible. It's completely not possible. You tell an older person who's going berserk and follows every feeling they have, follows their anger, follows their attachment, follows their jealousy, yet loud shouts and yells and steals and lies, that person cannot possibly begin to see their mind until we can start to calm our physical energy down. So like entry level is begin to calm your body down. Don't harm others. Why? Because that's going to make you berserk. You know, not just now, we can see that. But also the Buddhist view, it sows seeds in the mind that will ripen as our suffering in the future. So then once we've begun to live a disciplined life, and the point is it's for our sake. This is the one that we find so hard to hear. As soon as you hear morality, as soon as you hear don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, you think of a boring person, you know. It sounds like religion. But the Buddhist view is it's common sense. Harness your energy. Don't follow every feeling you have. Be like a child. You won't harm others, but hey, baby, you won't harm yourself. You'll begin to calm your own energy down. Now you can have the luxury of going to high school, learn how to meditate, learn the Buddhist model of the mind, and really go deep inside yourself and be your own therapist and unpack and unravel the contents of this mind, which is the hardest job in the world, but which is the job, the Buddha says, will be the one that will cause us to become this marvellous person. You know, this is the point. So such important things to hear it. It's practicing morality, but the Buddhist view is it's to do with benefiting yourself, not because someone says. And that's the part that I think is really hard for our minds. That's why we get so guilty. I'm a bad person. I'm this. I shouldn't get jealous. I shouldn't get angry. I shouldn't be depressed. So we either get guilty or we blame everybody else, you know, because it's too painful to take responsibility for it. Because guilt is not taking responsibility at all. It's just like self-hate. It's useless. It doesn't help anybody. So this attitude of seeing that this is the stuff that breaks my heart should make us kind of like self-respectful, you know. So the person who learns to lessen their anger, lessen their jealousy, lessen the actions that we do that harm others as a result of these, you don't just become this, you know, suffering, poor, sad-looking person who's being a good person. You become happy. It's the source of your happiness, you know. Beginning to be in control with our behaviour and then beginning to control our minds. This is the essence of the job. So, you know, of course, the bigger picture, a bird needs two wings, Buddha says, wisdom and compassion. So the compassion wing is the point. We all live in this world together. We live highly interdependent lives. We all have this, you know, we can see people brutalise each other. Sentient beings harm each other. And if we're fortunate and work hard, we can also benefit each other. So, but the Buddha says you can't benefit anybody. You can't even benefit a dog if you don't know your own mind, if you can't put yourself together. So if you can't control your own attachment, own anger, own pride, own jealousy, your own wish to kill, lie, steal, jump on the wrong partner, whatever, or indeed the actions that are negative but don't harm others but just harm you, like stuffing 14 bits of cake in. And it's not being moralistic, you know. It's the point. Don't hear it as moralistic. Hear it as practical for one's own benefit. Not just benefit your body, benefit your mind, you know. Because the Buddha's deal is that following the craving, following the anger, following the fears, following the jealousy is what completely breaks our heart. And then, of course, makes a mess of our lives. So putting this together is what they call the wisdom wing. And wisdom simply means we can see. The more you're caught up in your own misery, the more you're caught up in your own needs, the more you're caught up in your own dramas, you can't see past your own nose. And not only that, the Buddhist view is that we can see this. The more you're caught up in the misery, the world appears to you in that way. If you're full of anger all the time, how does the world look? Ugly. If you're completely depressed, how does the world look? Horrible. You know? So it's not the way these delusions in our mind that only make us miserable, they cause us to do harm to others, and they make the world look horrible or distorted. So literally not seeing things clearly. So the more we work on our mind, control our behaviour and work on our mind, and slowly, that means you become much more conscious of the workings of your own mind, which initially is quite scary, because we naturally start to see the rubbish more. In fact, they even say one of the signs of success when you begin to meditate is you think you're getting worse. Well, it's like going to the gym for the first time. You're sitting there quite comfy watching telly, a few kilos overweight, with floppy muscles. But you go to the gym, you come home with muscles you didn't know you had, you're exhausted. But we know it's a good pain, don't we? Same here. We've got to see our mind. We've got to be conscious, you know, and not just in a vague sort of way, but in a really articulate, clear way. And that's the point about Buddhist psychology. It describes these states of mind in a very clear, articulate way. Because what's interesting, and we really get to see this as we practice, the more we harness our physical and verbal energy, the more we can then begin to see the mind, and we begin to deal with the emotional component, which is when all the stuff hits the body. But then as we start to start to calm the emotional component down, not suffocate it, but learn to be aware of it and conscious, then we go more deep into our mind. We can then really, and this is the key to success, really begin to hear the conceptual stories that underpin the anger, the jealousy, the depression. These are conceptual stories, but they're running so deep and so subtle, we don't hear that they're just elaborate stories in our own head, you know. That's when we really begin to be our own therapist. That's when we can begin to make changes. So during the wisdom wing, and to this extent that we're then capable of being more empathetic with others, it's obvious, you know. More aware of others, more clear with others. And that also means, especially in our close relationships, not, dealing with the minefield of all our interactions. So, this is where understanding attachment, Buddha's view of attachment is so clear, but not like we think, So the classic kind of one is like, the partner relationship or the parent-child relationship. I mean, yourself as a parent, massively attached to their divine child, which brings possessiveness, which brings expectations that the child be in a certain way, the way that you want, which brings disappointment when they do what you don't want. This is all a function of attachment. But then, we can see. We're as blind as bats, We can't see the person at all. All we're doing is see them through the filter of our own needs because we're so attached to them. And it's the same with partners, If we've got so much attachment, we're blinded. We can't see the other person clearly. And therefore you can't help, certainly as a parent. I mean, I can see with my mother, all sorts of, there's lots of dramas in the family, but I mean, I can see with her massive attachment. She would do anything to defend me, and she'd defend me in situations that were not appropriate, because she'd overreact to defend her little Bobsy, Do you understand? I mean, one time she did my homework, because I was always lazy. Okay, the house was pretty chaotic, was a pretty crazy family, but she did my homework for me. She wrote a poem. I was supposed to write a poem. I was lazy, and I was untogether, but she did it for me, thinking she's helping me. So the teacher knew. She asked me what the meaning of one word was. I didn't know. I had egg on my face. My mother tried to help me. And I remember my father, who was in many ways not a good father, in many ways a heavy father, but he had some wisdom, and he used to say all the time, I never understood what he meant, but now, of course I get it now, he used to say, she has to learn from her own experience. That's what mothers do, isn't it? You overprotect. That's one of the functions of attachment. So you can't be a wise parent. And certainly in relationships, the other way that this attachment works, because one of the deeper ways attachment works, the deepest one inside all of us, which is very hard to see, more than attachment to food, sex, drugs, rock and roll, you name it, it's really deep inside us. It's this need, this attachment to be seen in a good light by other people. It runs most of our things. It runs most of our mind, most of our lives. It's very hard to see. It's so automatic. So especially in partner relationships. You know, let's say you're a really kind person. You're not like a shout and yell and scream person. Your kindness, fantastic. But your kindness, all of us are the same, is mixed with and polluted by your neediness to be seen as a nice person. So often that causes us, and see, one of the functions of attachment, it's a very interesting one, it's hard to see it. One of the functions of attachment is multifaceted. One of its functions is, this part of us, this deep instinctive attachment, this neediness in us, it's desperate for the nice things. It only wants the nice things. So there you are in a relationship. And you're really kind, you are loving, you are compassionate, you are kind, but there's masses of attachment to make everything nice, because you don't like, upsetting the apple cart. So always interfering, always, and thinking it's being kind, but actually it's not, it's interfering very often, because you can't stand things to be difficult. And also this attachment to be seen as a nice person. It's very hard to see this, it's very hard. Often we end up doing things that look like they're kind, but they're basically not minding up. They're minding someone else's business. I mean, a typical example would be, let's say you've got an alcoholic brother. Something like that. You love your brother, and you have compassion for your brother. That's the compassion wing. That's fantastic. They're the good qualities. Fantastic. But because your attachment wants everything to be nice, attachment can't stand the bad things. It's got to have everything nice, So it's upsetting your apple cart. It's making your life miserable, because this damn brother of yours won't get better. You give him all this advice, you're so kind, you're so helpful, you talk about him behind his back, the poor brother, he's so blah, blah, blah. Lucky it's being compassionate. You give him advice, and then you get annoyed with him because he's not taking your advice. Then you give him up. That's attachment. That's not compassion. Because your attachment wants him to get all better for our sake. But it sounds scary to say this because it sounds so selfish. But that's what attachment is. It's very needy. It's my needs, And it's very subtle. We can't see it sometimes. Attachment doesn't just look like you're being greedy for the food and the sex. Attachment to be seen as a nice person. Attachment to be seen to do the right thing. Attachment to have everything all nice. It really causes us to make a mess in our lives. So wise compassion would be see your brother suffering, your heart breaks for him, but you love him for who he is. And you don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. If he's not asking you advice, back off, please. You know yourself, nothing worse than someone sticking their nose into your life, thinking you this and telling you this and do that. We know it's like interfering. People say, I mean well. You mean well, but meaning well is not enough. You need wisdom. So when you've got less attachment, more contentment, then you see your brother suffering, but it doesn't disturb your peace. You wish he would be better for his sake, but you don't freak out about it. So then you give advice if he asks it. If he doesn't, you love him for who he is and you're respectful to him. But what we do is we see him in terms of being an alcoholic brother. We talk about the alcoholic brother. Everything in our mind is all about the alcoholic brother. Excuse me, he's got other qualities. Don't be so rude. Stop pointing out his alcoholic brother all the time. He's got other qualities. But that's our kind of pity for him. It's our attachment. We should change. It's very tricky. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We're very tricky. Our mind plays very tricky roles. All these little thoughts rushing away, all doing their stories. So it's really to sort out which are the wise parts of us and which are the neurotic parts is not an easy job. But that's the job that we're discussing here. Be our own therapist. No kidding. Learning to hear, not just feel the feelings. This is what's surprising to us. When you think of anger, you'd never think it's a bunch of thoughts. It sounds surprising. But it is. It's underpinned by this very strong story. How dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it. It's very deep inside us. And also, hard to hear, but anger is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. So Buddha's deal in his model of the mind, there's like this hierarchy of the neuroses, And this the deepest one inside us, we're born with it, is this attachment, which is, first of all, is this deep energy of dissatisfaction, constantly feeling I've never haven't got enough, it isn't enough, I don't do enough, I don't get enough, no matter what it is, it's not enough. This is like this kind of vampire inside us, is never satisfied. And we can see some people have got it hugely. This is really painful. This is the suffering of attachment. Buddha says from past lives. It's ancient habit. So therefore, because you're always dissatisfied, naturally you're going to hanker after something. That's the craving aspect of attachment. So you're always looking for what it is out there, that's such that if I'll get it, it'll fill up the gaping hole. But then, of course, we all know, as our mummies taught us, the more you get, the more you want. It's a bottomless pit in there. And then it causes us to possess the thing as mine, to hanker after, to think about it, to manipulate, to get it, to expect it. So all these aspects to attachment is very, very sneaky, very tricky, you know. So because attachment is the default mode, the moment we don't get what we want, we get upset, irritated, annoyed, frustrated, all these polite words for anger. This is so common, normal. We would never call it mental illness. It's a shock. It sounds bizarre to us. But the Buddha says it is, but more subtle, more nuanced. And he says we've got to pay much more attention to our minds, be more kind to ourselves, and stop putting up with stuff that is breaking our hearts, you know, because often we feel guilty. Oh, you know, the thing is, we can, you know, a few days ago, I was giving a talk in Brisbane. It was the AMA, what do you call it, the Australian Medical Association, the Queensland branch, and they had this annual thing called Women in Medicine. They have a breakfast. And like 300 women there, 300 doctors and their staff and things. Wonderful group. And there were three of us. There was one wonderful GP. She used to be the president, I think, of the CEO of the AMA, a Sydney doctor who works with integrative medicine, all the stuff together. She's great, giving all this good advice to these people about balanced diet, balanced sport, balance this, balance that. You know, very sensible way to live your life. And there's a positive psychologist, a really wonderful fellow. And then there's me. And what was interesting, the day later, I was going to speak to the guys at Long Bay Prison. Well, I couldn't see myself giving them a thing about make sure you get your green veggies and go skiing and, I mean, not being rude. You understand? Get a balanced life. What a luxury, how marvellous. I'm not criticising. How fortunate we can have such access to such things to get the best veggies, the best fruit, the best this, the best gyms, the best everything. Amazing. But these guys in Long Bay, excuse me, you know, living in a garbage dump. You jog around the yard if you liked, get a bit of health. Forget the food, it's like pig food, most prisons that I've eaten in. Australia's better than America. And then the other one was, the positive psychology one. This is what's interesting. You'd think with all of our lives, we tick all the boxes. Good, reasonable husband, reasonable kids, reasonable house, reasonable job, reasonable this, reasonable body, reasonable food. We tick all the boxes of the thing that the doctor said. But then look how hard it is to be positive. I mean, and then we feel guilty. Because we go, I've got all the best things, I tick all the boxes. Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling depressed? Why am I feeling all these unhappy things, you know? So it's really not that easy. But at the same time, it is possible. But we just don't tend to think. We tend to think we're guilty. Why do I feel bad? But the Buddha's view is that it goes so deep inside us. And not to be disappointed, not to be pushing ourselves, thinking we should be better than we are, or we shouldn't feel this way because I've got all the right things. I've got the right hubby, the right house, the right this, the right that. And that's what's interesting. My friend who came to the prison with me, Anna, who in Sydney, she goes there, teaches the guys in prison. She's amazing, and every week she goes. So she just said she just come from her yoga class, like in Alexandria or Newtown or somewhere, and there was this beautiful woman, young, truly ticked all the boxes, beautiful body, beautiful husband, beautiful children, rich, everything. And she killed herself. So we can hear that. Because we have all the right things, we tend to think, I should be happy. And that's why we feel guilty and we don't know what to do with these ordinary states of mind that we don't tend to be calling in our psychology mental illness, but which clearly are levels of mental illness. But because they're normal, we feel bad that we shouldn't have them. So it's all this kind of confusion we have. Are you seeing what I'm saying? So the Buddha's view is, yes, they are mental illnesses, and his shocking point, of course, is that we eventually can go beyond them. Again, don't hold your breath. But if you can be prepared to call them that, or it sounds shocking, and then it's kind of respectful to yourself. Okay, why have I got them? Well, guess what, Buddha says? A few lifetimes of bloody boring old habit. I'm sorry. So, you be humble with yourself. You come fully programmed with so much of this stuff. Take it seriously, but the point is, not so seriously, which is what we do in our culture, that think it's concrete and permanent and normal part of us. If you consider it's a normal part of you, like 5 fingers, then you wouldn't think you got a problem. But that's what we think about. We think it's normal to have anger, jealousy, pride. Why do people kill themselves? Why do people kill each other? Because of these states of mind, not because of something secret. So, the other point is, because we think they're normal on the one side, although we can't stand them, and because they're normal, we think they're concrete. And that's what's unbearable. That's what gives us panic attacks, and that's why we get so anxious and can't bear the pain, and that's why we kill ourselves, because you just don't know what to do, because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So the Buddha says, yes, they are awful. See them for what they are, but they're not concrete. They're not at the core of your being. They do not define you. So you could really say Buddha's like what they call it, a cognitive therapist. By changing your thoughts. But when we begin to get more deep into our mind, we can see that all these emotions are underpinned by thoughts. Anger is a series of thoughts. But we've had them for so long, so spontaneous, we believe they're true. And we believe it's part of who I am. Anger for me was one of my habits. My mum didn't have to teach me. Spontaneous. Deep in my bones. And then when I first heard the Buddhist teachings, I'm moved by the teachings. I really liked it. So here I am, still a Buddhist, right? Using it as my working hypothesis. And I heard anger's not at the core of your being. It took me years before I could have confidence in that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you've got to be persevering, Because as soon as you believe it is at the core of your being, that's why we kill ourselves. That's why we go crazy. But once we have confidence, it's not at the core of our being, we're able to work on it slowly and humbly, and then learn to live with it until eventually it goes. Because it's going to be a while before they all go. So I like to use this analogy. It sounds rather funny, but I like it for me. All my millions of roommates, all my thoughts. Basically, there are millions of thoughts racing since the time we get up till go to sleep, isn't it? Never ending, raging on. Uncontrolled. We don't understand most of them. Don't know where they come from. And we start going a bit deep, it scares the life out of us. So, but it's my thoughts. Not to be scared of them. It's my thoughts. So they're all my roommates. So, I say, in my life, when anger and jealousy and all the other rubbish was kind of typical, causing so much pain, they ran the show, They were like the roommates, they were kind of ran the house. And patience and kindness and wisdom were kind of hiding under the bed. Didn't come out. Goodness and forgiveness and love and compassion, they were kind of there, but we all know how easy it is to get upset, how easy it is to get jealous, how easy it is to feel depressed. The smallest thing can tip us over, we know that. The smallest thing can cause these crazy guys to come out, the roommates. So they're going to be a while before they go. So we have to have the courage to know that and make friends with that part of yourself. And I mean this sincerely. But because the trouble is you become a Buddhist or whatever it is. Oh, I'm angry. Oh, I'm jealous. Oh, I shouldn't be. All this punitive stuff, Yes, you're right, you shouldn't be, but you are. So let's deal with it. And learn to make friends with these crazy roommates. Because what happens is, then I see myself getting angry, and then I get angry with being angry, and another roommate pops up, which is called anger with anger. And it never ends. And new ones keep multiplying, So we've got to change the story in our head, change the way we interpret ourselves. And that takes courage, and it's surprising. You'd think we would love to have good thoughts, wouldn't you? You'd think it'd be so easy. Let's say hubby comes home, and I'm jealous. Freaking out, imagining all these things that have happened. He comes to the door, blast at him. No, darling, I didn't do it. Oh, didn't you, sweetheart? What a relief. You'd think you'd say. You did do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? We are addicted to believing the bad ones, and certainly when it comes to ourselves. This is fascinating, it seems to me, the irony of ego. It's like we love to hate ourselves. We love to believe the bad things about ourselves. 27 people can say good words about us. First you're hungry to hear it again, but no, not possible. Isn't it? One person says one bad word. Which one do we believe like a magnet? It's sort of fascinating. But it's the irony of ego. Ego in Buddhist view isn't some big special fancy good thing. Ego is this tortured, fractured, broken sense of yourself, which has got the voices of attachment and anger and fear and jealousy, all this stuff, Which is, again, we think is so normal, which it is, but not at the core of our being. That's the piece to know. So to have the courage to know that, and not be scared of that part of ourselves. Because it's very scary seeing our mind sometimes. That's why we want to push it all away, live in denial. And that's what's interesting. There's a friend of mine who's been a Buddhist as long as me, a bit longer than me. Real practitioner, incredible. Studied philosophy for years, practitioner. Suppressed though, because she's a well-behaved person. Got really good discipline, really peaceful nature, never shouts at anybody. But the downside of that kind of person is totally suppressed. you understand what I'm saying? So now, after 60 years, like violent anger and fears and dramas coming up, after 60 years. I was saying to her, one advantage about me is, I couldn't pretend I wasn't angry. I hardly hid anything. So there's an advantage to that. For me. Disadvantage for other people, because they get in my bad mouth. At least I said to her, you didn't hurt other people, you just hurt yourself. I hurt me and others. But at least I didn't suppress, and that's often what causes the worst suffering. Do you understand? Because it terrifies us.
So, what about artists and musicians and their way of expressing stuff through their art form? Is that, how do you guys,
what do you mean?
How does Buddha look at that?
What do you mean by that, though? What's your question to me? I don't understand your question.
I was just wondering, I guess a lot of people that I know,
artists.
Yeah, musicians, whatever,
so what
their
about
way of expressing, and that helps them understand their mind.
What?
That helps them understand their mind.
But I don't get your question.
Yeah, I was
It's like you asked me about playing football. What's the point of your question?
Yeah.
Play football, do art. What's the point behind the question?
So it's all good to do that? We don't have to fit into a mould?
Huh? Okay, tell me what you've been hearing. It's a very fascinating question. But why don't you tell me what you've been hearing here in essence? Give me a couple of sentences of what you think I'm saying. And then
attachment,
I'm sure...
That's what I've been
What?
hearing. Attachment.
And what's attachment from what you've been hearing from me?
That
how do you think it is?
a lot of suffering.
Yeah, and what is it, you think?
Holding on to ideas, beliefs.
Is that what you heard? That's interesting. Oh. Didn't hear me say that it's this incredible neediness in this dissatisfaction, always wanting something more, jumping on the cakes and the people and the sex and the drugs and the opinions and the people's opinions about us and needing to be seen as a good person. You didn't hear any of that?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Can you recognise that inside you?
Yeah, totally.
So can you see how it causes suffering?
Yeah, I get that.
Can you see how it causes suffering?
Yeah.
Dissatisfaction, therefore jealousy, therefore anger.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that? So then, within that fact, whether you're an artist or a footballer or a multi-millionaire, what's the difference? So the answer to your question would be, goodness is the point. So you can be a multi-millionaire and be kind and compassionate and wise and not attached, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You could be a poor person and be mean like a vampire, couldn't you? You could be an artistic person and be neurotic and self-centered and miserable and up and down like a yo-yo, or you could be an artist and be a genius. So what you do with your life is, if it's based on wisdom and kindness, then hey, go for it, baby.
Yeah. That's what I was asking.
Can you see the point? That's the point.
Totally. Yeah.
So whatever you do, you can be rich and be compassionate, and you can be poor and be mean. You can be artistic and be kind. You can be artistic and be self-centered. So it doesn't matter what you do; it's how you do it, what informs it, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh,
does that answer the question?
100% agree.
Huh?
100% agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's up to us. It's not a question of giving up sex, drugs, and rock and roll, thinking I'm a holy person. Just a boring person.
That wasn't really what I was implying.
No, I sort of, but I know that, but I was saying it that way, being sarcastic, you know. It's like, because it can sound punitive. It can sound like, oh my God, giving up sex, drugs. As Lama says often, when we hear about giving up attachment, because we don't have the same definition of it, you see, in our culture, we hear, oh, I've got to give up my happiness, I've got to give up my heart. Not at all. The way Buddha's talking about attachment, it's like the junkie in us, but it's like mild junkie, you know. Always needing something, always wanting something more, never happy, never satisfied, therefore kind of up and down, therefore finding fault easily, therefore, do you understand? That's attachment energy.
Yeah, I get that, and I think that's the point I was trying to make, just because not everyone wants to, follow Buddha, or follow the Buddhist path, and I guess...
but I'm not suggesting that.
No, I'm not saying you're suggesting that, but I'm just saying, it's about to connect with people.
Huh?
To be able to connect with people, on a... I guess how you're teaching this room at the moment, people are listening, and how to connect with people like that.
But the Buddhist point is this,
yeah.
that if you, less attachment, less neediness, less anger, less jealousy, less depression, less low self-esteem, more kindness, more content, more fulfilled, more joyful, therefore more connected. It's logical. Do you see what I'm saying? So you're assuming by giving up attachment you don't have connection. That was what was in your mind. You said it. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I'm trying to be clear what you're saying. You seem to be an assumption by giving up attachment and doing what I'm doing. Not everybody wants to be a Buddhist. Of course I'm going to be a Buddhist. This is not Buddha's known this stuff. I just call Buddhism, that's all.
Yeah.
It's what all he's saying. It's a recipe to become a better person and to be a helpful person and to connect more with others.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you hear that a bit? What I'm
Yeah,
saying?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I just clarifying it in my own mind.
Yep, okay, I understand. I understand. So the one that is interesting is that when we think of compassion and love now, this is like the compassion we Buddha. This is like the meaning of open heart, really. If you think about it, maybe the word open heart. If we look at ourselves, we can see these neuroses. We might have a very strong level of one. Maybe not a pedophile, maybe not a terrorist, maybe not a multi-murderer. Maybe not a big fat thief. We all have a tendency to take something. We have a tendency to get depressed, a tendency to criticise. We can note it. We can recognise mild aversions. So even that, I'd say, for me, I find that very helpful. When I see my own mind more clearly, I'm using Buddha's model. I see my own mind. And then I read on my iPad, read my stories, read the newspaper, see the world. And often we have a tendency, oh, look at these terrible people. Oh, look at these dreadful politicians. Oh, we criticise. It's so holier than thou, It's a big trap to fall into. But it's good to see the world as a horrible place. It's good to see suffering. It's good to see this person, that. But one of the things I say to myself is really helpful. I recognise that. So straight away, that keeps me very connected to others, even though the world's full of maniacs, rather than the supercilious kind of important. So you understand, it can easily happen when you start becoming a spiritual person, so-called spiritual. Get very righteous, There's nothing more revolting than that.
No.
Do you understand what I mean? We're all in the same boat. So when I read about wacko people and, the stream people even, I go, I recognise that. I recognise attachment, just that I don't want to jump on little girls, but I recognise attachment. I recognise all those, because I also take this, as I said, my working hypothesis, Buddha's view of the mind, this view that I'm describing here, these delusions and these virtues. We've all got them. Some have got more virtues, some have got more delusions. Look at the world, it's hardly rocket science. I recognise that, I say. Or I say to myself when I read heavy-duty things, thank you for showing me how not to be. And then you get less anger and fear about it, because we're all in the same boat. And then you think the compassion side is, can I help? Is there anything I can do to help? And often we can see there's nothing. I mean, if you can go to Syria tomorrow, please go. Help them. We can see we can't. So then often we freak out, we can't cope, and we get mad, the ISIS this, and the Hungarians this, and all this, and the Mr. Abbott this, and blah, 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 Doesn't help. If there's something we can do, do it. If not, have compassion, understand it, and even if you want to apply the view of karma, if you're a Buddhist, and know why it's happening, and then we do the best we can. But have a courageous attitude. Stay optimistic. If we don't be optimistic, you're all going to drown together, Because the world is a suffering place. It is outrageous. It is unbearable. It is painful. We can't make it all magic, We can't make it all better. But we can understand it, see what motivates people, recognise your own mind, have confidence, have compassion, and finally even have compassion for the wackos. The Buddhist view is they're the ones harming themselves, I always think of a mother who's got a junkie kid. Everybody can't stand him. He's a pain in the bum, But she has such compassion for him because she can see he's harming himself. That's real compassion. That's the biggest open heart. But that's hard to have. Because we love to hate the meanies, and feel sorry for the innocent victims. But like that story about Shariputra. It's like hilarious to us to hear that story. Life after life after life. One role this time, next role that time. Enemy one life, friend the next life, So big picture point of view, you get kind of more balance. I mean, I'm not saying, as he says, not who's going to be a Buddhist, of course not. It kind of makes it sound very sobering, But the whole Buddhist idea, I remember Dalai Lama often says, okay, they say compassion wins the point. Get out there and try to make the world a better place. But compassion isn't enough, he says. You've got to have wisdom, which means do this job we're talking about here, put our lives together, put our mind together, lessen our own neuroses, become more courageous, more content, more fulfilled, more self-respectful. That's the consequence of giving up attachment. The irony of attachment is it's a bottomless pit. I've never got enough, which means I'm never good enough. And that's manifest for us in our culture very strongly, And of course, another whole level of practice, which is what I was thinking about when I went to speak to the blokes in prison. And as I said to the people at the breakfast, I said, oh, this is fantastic, And I said, I agree with both. But I said, let's look at what happens when your hubby leaves you? What happens when you get cancer? That's when the real test of how to use positive psychology and how to learn to be content. Like these guys in prison. I mean, I've been working with people in prison for 20 years now, in America especially, where the sentencing is so severe. I can't tell you. It's like hell on earth in American prisons, you know. The numbers are huge. There's 10 times more people in prison easily per head of population than in Australia and many other countries. The sentencing is beyond belief so heavy. You know, 30 years for the smallest crime. Many people on death row. I mean, terrible. And the prisons are garbage dumps. You're treated like an animal. So like 20 years now, this project, Liberation Prison Project, we started. And it was just getting letters from people in prison, you know. I remember the very first person who ever wrote. That's how it started. When I was based in America, editing this Buddhist magazine of this organisation that I'm part of. In 95, this young prisoner wrote a letter. Actually, 96, sorry. And he told me he was Mexican-American, in Los Angeles. He was 18. He'd been in gangs since he's 11. In prison since he's 12. 16 years arrested for, not murder. It was like what they call attempted murder. He's not killed anybody. 3 life sentences. And in California, also, you get arrested and sentenced for the 3rd time. Mandatory life sentence. Thousands and thousands of people in prison who will never get out alive for stealing a video 3 times. You know? Mandatory life sentence. It's so heavy, I can't tell you. So there's this young man, Arturo, who was sitting in this type of prison in California that's really common in the world now, but it was like even considered against human rights then, where they're in what they call permanent lockdown. Where you're in a small cell, 8 foot by 10 foot. I can't think of the meters. Like one of our bathrooms, like a bathroom with a bathtub in it, smallish, 2 bunks, concrete, 2 people in there, 23 hours a day. The noise, they say, it's like being at a rock concert all day, beyond belief. The food, beyond disgusting. Costs like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year per head to keep them in prison, the taxpayers. One person in California said the prison system is the only growth industry in California. It's unbearable. So anyway, there's this Arturo who was in this security lockdown, permanent lockdown situation for being a gangster in the prisons. I mean, they kill each other, they stab each other, they do fight, they have their wars in prisons, heavy duty, the Mexican gangs. So he's this young man, been in prison, been in gangs since 11. And like a lot of these Mexicans that I met, very intelligent, very good hearts, but brought up in these outrageous conditions, And he'd never killed anybody. He'd been in the gangs, but never killed anybody. And so he was in this top security prison, 23 hours a day, and he read a book by Atisha, He was very moved by the talk of compassion, so he wrote to us, and I got the letter. So the whole thing started from there. So within a year, I had 40 people writing to me, we'd send them books, and I'd visit, and it all grew from there. And then it's in Australia now. And anyway, the thing was, there he is, sitting in his cell, little cell, 23 hours a day, noise like you can't conceive of, and many people going completely out of their brains in these cells, screaming non-stop, violent noise. It'll be 3 hours a day, they say, when it's relatively quiet. They're allowed to have 10 books, no hardback because you can whack your cellmate, because they're 2-man cells. You're allowed to have the inside of a pen, not the outside, because you can stab your cellmate. 1 pad to write on, 10, and then if you have money, you can have a television with earphones. And that's your life, 23 hours a day. And you have 1 hour a day in another cell, walking up and down. No air, and there's no air, there's no water, there's no air, there's no sky, nothing like that. They'll get what do you call it? Liver disease, because there's no sun on their bodies, 20, 30 years. So anyway, there he is. He's 18 years old. He wrote to us, and he'd read this book. And then eventually, once we started to more and more prisoners writing, and then we'd send them copies of our magazine, the one that I was editing, and they'd read about these lamas and things, and so they'd write to Lama Zopa, our boss. Lama Zopa, my teacher. So I remember Rinpoche said to him, like he said to a lot of people, so there's Arturo in this nightmarish environment, what you call hell on earth. Hell on earth. There's 2 things I want to tell you. One was this one. He'd often say to these prisoners, which to us sounds shocking, but they get it. Your prison is nothing in comparison with the inner prison of ordinary people. And this is what sounds so heavy. We are that group. That's us. This is shocking to hear. Like, he's gone mad saying that. And then he qualified. He said, the prison of attachment, the prison of depression, the prison of jealousy, the prison of low self-esteem, and these things that I said we think are normal, we try to push away and think bad if we have them because we shouldn't, because we don't understand them. We don't understand the evolution. We don't know where they come from. We don't know why we feel them. We feel guilty about feeling it. We push it all away or blame everybody else. Or, like, many people, not kidding, kill themselves. But these people in prison, it's kind of interesting. They can't make anything better. They can't even pick their nose in peace, They can have no freedom. This is the thing that's the biggest depression for most people. First you treat it like an animal. Maybe in Australia not as bad. I promise you it's not. You're like the scum of the earth. You're nobody as far as the world is concerned. And you have no freedom to do anything. These cells especially. Just nothing. I mean, that would be enough to make anyone go completely mad. But these ones that I know, these people who I know, who've really begun to like the Buddhist teachings, we send books and things and visit them and so on and so forth. We used to get 1,000 letters a month. And this is all I'm getting at about the Buddhist approach. Buddhist has a saying, if you can change something, please change it. But if you can't, and I'm now paraphrasing, that's where the work starts. So these friends in prison, they were looking for something different. They start to write books. They like the Buddhist teachings. They start to practice, meaning changing their own minds, because you can't change the outside. And that's what makes us go crazy. So they know this is true. So there's always this extreme example I tell, which is just a perfect story. I didn't know this woman. She was in Florida, and she was on death row. She was hitching, this is about 30 years ago, hitching in Florida with a hippie kids and hippie hubby. They got picked up by two blokes, and the two blokes got stopped by the coppers, and the two blokes killed the coppers and blamed the hippies. Well, they were called cop killers. They're on death row in Florida. And like you are an animal if you're a cop killer. Treated like an animal. So you can only conceive, you can't imagine, can you, the nightmare. You're innocent, just hitching along the road, and you're innocent. And this thing happens. Like any minute they'll see the truth. And slowly, unbelievable agony and pain. You can only imagine what she went through. And she said, finally, I realized there was nothing I could change. But they couldn't take my mind from me. So I decided, I'm not a prisoner. I'm a monk. I'm not in a cell. I'm in a cave. It sounds so moving, but can you only conceive of the nightmare? So at the same time, I remember reading about this fellow, also innocent, and you hear it in the States all the time now, but so heavy the sentencing, and so many people wrongly accused. Everything's so political, so heavy. I can't tell you. And this fellow went he was innocent also, on death row, but he went completely out of his brain, screaming daily as long as he had a voice, like a maniac. I did not rape and kill that woman. Now, all I'm getting at is this. This is why these extreme examples are so good. They were both right. They were innocent. They were right. But they couldn't change it. So our problem in our culture, we think, I'm right. I'm allowed to be angry. We think that. Buddha says, of course you are. But look at the pain it's causing you. See, that's the point he's making. He's not being moralistic. He's not saying you've got to give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He's saying look into your mind and observe the nightmare that the anger, the this and the that causes you. It's not moralistic. It's not heavy. It's not anything. It's just practical. This woman had the amazing ability to see this. She wasn't a Buddhist, I'm not about being Buddhism here. Buddhism has nothing to do with it. This is practical. But look at the courage it takes. Look at the smallest things that happen in our life. Wrongly accused, hurt, the hubby leaves you, mean this, something that. Every day, everybody, at work, at home, everybody has. But look at the torture for our minds, how we can't let go of it. Because we feel we're right, and we are. But what good is being right? This is the point. And so the tragedy is, and it's not being mean about it, he simply couldn't ever see that he could change his mind. And this is the most of the world. This woman, kind, beautiful, my friend Anna's friend, killed herself. She didn't understand she could change her mind. I'm not saying it's easy, it's not. But oh my God, what else do we have? So as long as we can change things, I'm happy. But when you can't, then what? That's the point. That's when the hard work starts. Are we communicating?
Mm-hmm. So what Why do you think we're so loyal to our delusions?
Habit, only habit. There's no,
this
there's
about
no,
this for weeks.
there's no.
Why am I so loyal to that when it's harming me?
If you've been playing the piano for 10 years and not realizing you learned it wrongly, why are you playing the wrong notes? What's the simplest reason? What's the simplest
Used
reason?
to it, habit.
Habit.
Habituation.
There's the answer. And why is it hard to change? Same reason. Habit. That's the only answer. It doesn't sound satisfactory, but this is the only answer. Not, you see, this is the thing. If you take Buddha's view, you've come from countless lives of habits, and you come into this life born with these entrenched habits, and believe that your mummy caused them, and everybody else caused them. Even if we don't believe that, still it takes time. That's what I'm trying to say. We have to have the humility to know that they're very deep habits, and not panic because they don't change overnight. But we understand that logically it's only because it's habit. There can be no other reason. And all it shows is the depth of the habit. That's why we should be kind and humble with ourselves and go slowly and rejoice in our progress. But let me tell you something else. The fact is, we're making masses of change. You're working really hard on your mind. You are practicing. But we're also never satisfied with the result. We always assume we should be achieving more. So this is like that's a part of the problem too. In fact, we're making more progress than we imagine. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But was we never rejoice?
It was a genuine inquiry of, rolling it round my mind. I was thinking, it's not logical to be loyal to what's harming you, and I recognise that it's my creation, not putting it on anyone else.
But do you hear that? Can you see the reasoning, the habit one? Does that not satisfy you as an answer?
Well, I guess I didn't. I think about the power of habituation.
But what else could it be?
Well,
give me another reason. What else could it be?
Yes, well, that's
Think
where
of it.
I was thinking, well, it's flipping hard work.
That's all. That's the one.
I'm a flipping hard work.
I know, but I have to tell you, the other one is important. We never think this. We always if you did just God. If we compared ourselves with a few other people on this earth, this is not being arrogant, we would discover that part of the 0.1%, not rich, but fortunate. Okay, can I ask you a few questions?
Yes.
Do you jump on little girls?
Do I?
Jump on little girls!
Not at the moment.
Good. Do you lie? Do you lie?
Occasionally.
Steal?
No.
Kill?
No.
Abuse people with your mouth?
Sometimes a little tricky one.
Okay. Do you punch people in the face and beat them up?
No.
Do you go kill fish?
No.
Do you go slaughter people? Do you drop bombs?
No.
Do you want to use your money to torture people?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you trying to be kind?
Yes.
Patient?
Yes.
Generous?
Yes.
Do a bit of practice every day?
Yes.
Well, please, dear, would you kindly be a bit humble and be blissful with tears of happiness at your progress? I mean, can you hear me? We've got to be realistic, but we're not. We're so tunnel vision. And this is the irony of the attachment. No matter what we achieve, we always assume it's not enough. That's another point, but there's another point again. Use the analogy of a garden. So let's just say we started off with a garden full of weeds, our delusions, yeah? So you notice you've got weeds, and you own responsibility for them, and you decide to start to do the weeding, don't you?
Yeah.
So what happens is, it looks fairly peaceful out there, but now you realise they're all weeds that have grown. You want to dig them all up. So after a couple of days, it's going to look much worse almost, isn't it? You've got to start digging up, you've got to be up to here in dirt, you've got to get exhausted, actually. But already, it looks worse, right?
Yeah.
But in fact, you're already starting the job. You should be crying in happiness that you're actually starting to do it. And not only that, you keep pulling the weeds out and you start putting the seeds in, the flowers. But they take a while to grow, don't they? So have you tried to plant good seeds in your mind every day? Or would you kindly have the patience and the humility to bloody wait for them to fruit? Are you seeing my point?
I do.
So there's many other ways to see it that would make us actually rejoice and be delighted. So there's several points. But the basic answer is habit. And also, we should ask ourselves why there's an assumption in the question that we should be better than we are. There's an assumption that you should have more weeds out of the garden than you've got. That's what's behind your question.
Right.
Why is it still? Because they're that deeply ingrown. That's all. That's all. So then be happy with it and rejoice. Now you've got a few methods. Now you've got a bit of, you know a bit of botany. You're doing the job every day. If you didn't do the job every day, you're in trouble. If you went to the gym and didn't have pain, then you're also in trouble because it means you're not doing enough weeding. And if you sat in front of the television and had that pain that you had at the gym, then you would be in trouble. But you're doing the digging, the dirt's all coming out, and you're growing the seeds. They're going to take time to come, darling. We've got to be more patient and humble and delighted with our progress. And I'm just not being kidding here.
Yeah.
This is huge, and one of the commonest mistakes is always being dissatisfied with our progress. You know? It's part of it, I'd say. There's a few points here. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. What else? Time to go home soon, I think. Oh, no, it's not yet. But it could
Somebody
be.
on the back row's got their hand up.
Where's that? Yes, sweetheart.
Thank you. Can I just get you to rewind a little bit? You were
Yeah.
talking about conflict overseas with wars and things, and you said we should have some understanding. Can you explain that? That might be
Okay, I'm
what
just
you
using...
said, but-
Okay, I'm talking as a Buddhist here
Yes.
and looking at taking the Buddhist view called the law of karma, which is the Buddha's explanation for why suffering happens and for why happiness happens. So in general, like I've been saying briefly, but let's go a bit more into detail. Okay, if we're just a materialist, if the material, and not being criticism, I'm just saying that's a label for the scientific view that says that you're made by your mummy, that your mind is the brain, you understand, and that we don't know why things happen. We haven't got any reasons scientifically for why there are wars. You understand my point? We say, oh, it's history, and we haven't really found the answers yet as a system. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
Now, if you're a Christian or a Muslim, and you really do have faith in God, really have faith, I think this is the way to say it. If you truly have faith that God runs the universe, and He has His plan, and it's not my job to know His plan, so that I'd have faith in Him, wouldn't I? And would you accept that?
Yes.
And that means it's not my job to wonder why things are happening. My job is to do His wishes, to obey Him, to live a good life, to be helpful to others, and to go to heaven when I die. I'm not being critical. So then, you don't know why these things happen, but God has plans. So I remember then that one of those planes went down, Air Asia, and all the Malaysians, mostly Muslim, who died. And one of the set of parents were asked about how they felt about their daughter, and they were peaceful. They said, "She belongs to God. He has taken her back. We are happy." Now that to me is a sublime answer if you have that view in the world. Are you with me now? Now we have the Buddhist view. It's the third one. Another view, okay? So Buddha's view is this. Every millisecond of any suffering anywhere, whether it's one person or an entire country, is because those sentient beings have done that kind of action in the past. Every second of happiness of any sentient being in the universe is the fruit of their past virtue. That's the simplest, most fundamental answer. So you can have groups of people in countries who are peaceful. Australia, relatively peaceful, isn't it? Relatively peaceful. With no violent wars, like even America, every second, century they have a war. So that's the consequence. In general, not everybody in the country is happy, but in general, if we've lived a life without wars, that's the fruit of our virtue in the past. If we have people come along and kill us, that's the result of our killing in the past. If we have stolen from us, it's the result of our stealing in the past. If we live a life where we get credit and people don't steal from us, it's because we haven't stolen in the past. It's not punishment, it's not reward. But the Buddha's view is this is the universe and this is how it runs. All the animals, all the creatures, all the humans. He says it's a natural law that runs the universe. No one's pulling the strings. It's not punishment. It's not reward. Of course, it's complex. Exactly what you did when that caused this and that. But he says that's the, and it's in all the literature. It's there. That's the Buddhist explanation. So what I'm saying is me, let's say, choosing to be a Buddhist all these years, I've decided to take Buddhist views of the universe as my working hypothesis. And I like to study the Buddhist teachings because I've always wanted to know what and why. So I'm using the Buddha's reasons now. They're the ones I'm working with, do you understand? So they're the ones I work with to help me understand why my life is the way it is. Instead of self-pity, not fair, poor me, why did this happen? I have a reason why it happened. I understand it, I'm using that. And I can look at the rest of the world and that helps me understand why the world is the way the world is. Happy or suffering. So therefore it's not how dare it happen, why is it happening, if only it shouldn't happen, oh my God, that kind of thing, Do you see a bit what I'm saying?
But if you do live a virtuous life,
Yeah.
and then when your karmic things are happening,
Yeah.
then your karma is going to be better because you have lived a better life.
That's right. That's right.
So there
Then-
is some reward in there.
What do you mean by reward? See, what's a reward?
Well, you were just saying.
I know that, but what do you mean by reward?
Well, a benefit.
Try and explain to me.
A benefit. You get a benefit.
But
for
reward
doing
is,
something.
we talk about punishment and reward. That assumes a person who is a punisher and a rewarder, isn't it? That's the way we use those words. What did you think?
Yes.
When you eat good food, would you say, you could say you get rewarded by good health. You could say that. But no one's doing it to you. You're doing it to yourself, aren't you?
Yes.
So, of course, in that sense, yes, Buddha agrees. Absolutely. Happiness is a fruit of virtue. But there's no one, the difference is, no one is telling you you're a good person and now you'll go to heaven. That's what I'm trying. It's not as if you've been rewarded by somebody. It's not as if your doctor says you get cancer if you smoke, but your doctor punished you with cancer. It's the natural consequence. That's the point about karma.
Yes.
And that's the subtle difference. Of course it's good. And the Buddha says, honey, you want to be happy? And what's the answer? You want to be happy?
Of course.
Buddha says, don't kill. Don't lie. Don't steal. So you think, I mean, it's just a sensible piece of advice. That's all. Rather than, I'll reward you, which is the Christian one. I'm not criticising it. But it's a big difference psychologically. So then, having this view that it's a natural law, like don't smoke, you won't get cancer, eat well, you'll have good health. It's a natural law, then you feel like you can own it and be in charge of it and rejoice and delight, you know? Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
That's the point. And also the other point is this. Having this view of karma, when I see the people in Syria suffering and the people being murdered and the terrorists and all this, you can only have compassion because they don't realise it's the fruit of their past karma, and the harmers don't realise they're creating heavy negative karma and can only suffer in the future. So we have such compassion for people because we're all ignorant. I mean, I'm just saying, this is my working hypothesis, Buddha's view, you know. Do you see my point? And this is where it's very moving. Another example, again, another story. Won't be said. In 2003, Richard Gere, as you know, is a Buddhist. He invited Dalai Lama to New York, and he also invited, he wanted to collaborate with us, working with people in prison, you know. So we had a meeting about it. In the end, he did his own thing, whatever. But the point is, he decided to invite 20 former prisoners, all of whom had done some kind of meditation in prison, to come have an all-day meeting and then meet the Dalai Lama, you know. So there was a bunch of Americans, black ones, white ones, male, female, Puerto Rican, Mexican, the whole works, right? And a few people like me were invited who worked with people in prison. It was a very moving day. They all talked about their experiences and the suffering and the racism and the sexism and the blah, 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 you know. But they also invited 2 young Tibetan nuns, early 20s, who'd been tortured and sexually abused in prisons in Tibet, right? For being Buddhist nuns. Like little girls who did nothing, you know, really. So the point is, here are these young women having this philosophical view that I'm describing in this room. And that's been in them since they're born. That's the stuff that they just, like, that's their default mode. Like our view is the default mode of I didn't ask to get born, it's not my fault. Do you understand? They understand the view of karma. It's very deep inside them. And that's the view they use to interpret the world and their own suffering and their own happiness. So there they are, suffering. So then, a couple of years, and they were telling people in the room about their suffering, and they were very quiet. They weren't angry. First point, they were quiet and were not angry. And that, I think, is already a shock. In our culture, I think if you don't get angry, there's something weird about you. You know? It's almost anger is natural and good. Well, and that's the normal one with most of them. You know, they were wrongly treated, badly treated. They were innocent of this or that, which is huge in our mind. Why did this happen? How dare this happen? This is our huge thing. And because of the materialist view, we don't have a logical reason, any kind of reason why it happened. Then of course you stay crazy. You go mad. And we can't get past that. Why did it happen? The Muslim had that answer, so they were peaceful. That's their view. Well, the Buddha's answer is karma. You know, it was huge for the Buddhists. So these young women, they were not angry. And then the other thing was, at the end of the talk, they were very quiet, tears were there, you know, and they said very quietly, and of course, we had compassion for our torturers because we knew we must have harmed them in the past. So that, for me, is the example, what I'm saying here. You know, there they had the view of karma, like those Malaysians had the view. And this is the point I'm trying to get at here, a bigger point I'm making, and this is what Buddha says, and I think it's obvious, that whatever goes on in our head informs the way we experience life. So if you have the view that you didn't ask to get born, if you have the view that mummy and daddy made you, if you have the view that there's no answer why somebody should rape you or kill you, or for that matter give you $1 million, but we don't care, we never ask, why do good things happen to me? We don't care why good things happen. We will want more, please. But it's only the bad ones. We say, why do bad things happen to me? And only because we don't have an answer. Well, the Christians and the Muslims say it's God's will if they're the ones who are really devoted. Therefore, they're peaceful. Well, the Buddhist one says it's karma, you know. So it's up to us to look into the views we have and apply them. That's all. It's our job, you know, to see if we have answers for things. I mean, for me, since a little girl, I've always wanted, like, the big picture, you know. I want to know who, why, what, where. Whatever reason, I'm working with the Buddhist answers right now. So that me is immensely compelling, because even though it's not easy when you get punched in the nose, not to want to feel like a victim, you have a logical answer in your mind. You've got to use logic to argue with egos and entrenched misconceptions, and that's not an easy job, because we'd rather fall into the self-pity, you know, fall into the anger, how dare. It's not easy, you know. But it's a powerful tool if you can use it. And those young women, for me, were a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about here, you know. They would have, if you give them a key, they would have run a mile. Of course they would have got out of bloody prison. Not sitting there going, oh, it's karma, suffer, you know, no. But given that they couldn't change it, they were able to work with it massively and even have compassion for their torturers. That's intense, you know. That's amazing.
So I'm going to try and spit this out. I was sexually abused as a child.
Yeah.
And my father, it was my father.
Uh-huh.
And he also likes torturing. Now, well, I'd always had quite high empathy for him.
Since a little girl,
yes.
you could see he was suffering, you mean?
He seemed very tormented.
Indeed. I think, before you go further, I understand a similar experience for me, so I'm not, you know, but this is the thing we could really have the courage to see. If anybody's a bloody torturer, I mean, if they're not suffering, God Almighty, I don't know, they're not. The trouble is we you know, this is the point the Buddha's making. And so, no-brainer to see it. The trouble is they harm others as well. That's the tragedy, you know.
And so, in Western society, obviously, you go to court.
That's right.
So I did that.
That's right.
Which I was quite upset about.
Who went to court?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I took him to court.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. That's interesting.
But not... So my reasoning was, one, I wanted the abuse to stop.
How old were you?
I can't
When you sued him?
remember.
When you
No, I
sued him?
didn't sue him.
You said you took him to court?
Yes, so...
So what
I
did you
went
do by
to
taking him
police.
to court? What does that mean? Huh?
So I reported him to the police.
But how old were you when you did that?
In my 20s, I think.
What were you doing still living at home? How come you didn't leave? I'm not being horrible now. I'm just talking. I'm just curious. Curious.
So he left when I was 13.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And then?
And then he had visitation. So I was still living with my mum.
Yeah.
And he still got to visit. But
I
then
see.
I said, I don't want to see you anymore.
Did your mum know this was happening?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So then?
So afterwards, I really wanted to write him a letter.
So he stopped coming?
He stopped coming.
Okay, good. I mean, yeah, good.
And
okay.
he did go to jail
Okay, I
for 2
understand.
years, which I was upset about.
Okay.
My desire was actually for him to stop running.
Who?
For my father to stop running.
From himself?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So then go on. Is there a question from this? Or
Yes,
what?
yes.
What's the question? Tell us your question and see if we can get to
my
it.
question is, how do I tell the difference between whether my actions are being compassionate or whether they're being, or whether it's an attachment, what you were talking about.
I understand. Honey, I
selfishness.
understand. The only way you're going to know that is by looking at your mind. So tell us, just now that you've opened up about it, tell us what you
Yes.
think. What was your reason for, what was the first reason for getting the police involved?
For the abuse to stop.
And you thought you could, I mean, I'm just asking you now, but this is now we're discussing it.
Yeah.
There was no other method. You couldn't get your mum to get him to stop from coming. Why did your mother have to answer the door? I'm just asking. I mean, why not?
It hadn't occurred. Yeah.
To whom?
I don't think-
To you?
Me. Yeah.
Well, that's a bit odd, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, that sounds like anger then. I'm just asking. Now that you're talking about it, let's analyse.
Yeah.
That sounds like anger. I mean, you're not stupid. Why didn't you talk to your mum? Did you talk to your mum?
I did talk to my
What'd she
mum.
say?
She said that she had suspected it, but the environment that we lived in, she would not have. Well, I don't feel like she would have felt safe standing up to him.
Because he was a bully. So so you feel that she was scared of him as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. So then you figured going to the police would stop him from coming. So the police believed you, did they?
Yes.
You didn't have to show proof or anything?
He admitted it.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then do you think you've helped your father? See his faults?
I have no idea.
You don't know? You don't have any contact with him?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I would like to.
Have contact with him?
I'd like to write him
Why?
a letter. I'd like to write him a letter to say that that I hope he reaches his fullest potential,
Uh-huh.
and that he doesn't, that he's not constantly running
I understand.
from it.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. So do you think he's got the capability to see his mind?
I'm not
Where's he
sure.
live right now? On his
he-
own, with another wife? What?
He lives with another wife now.
Okay.
Yeah,
And he abuses people there too, you think?
I don't know.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so why do you want to write to him? You want him to know that you're not that horrible? You want him to forgive you for telling
No.
the police or something?
no.
No, you're content with your choices.
He's going to have whatever feelings he's going to have
I
towards me.
understand. So why do you want to write to him? Is it for your sake or his sake?
His sake.
How will your writing help him? Okay, now we get down to the question. Compassion is the wish to help somebody.
Okay.
You hear me? But that's not what helps you help them.
Yeah.
Wisdom is what helps you be compassionate. That means you have to have enough confidence that your method would actually help him.
Yeah.
So in other words, if there's a person sitting there who's a complete racist, you don't give them a lecture. They're not open to it. So you shut your mouth and you walk away, you know.
Yeah.
Wisdom is what to say that will help. So if you feel it will help him, then go for it, honey. Why not? Nothing to lose, is there? Nothing to lose.
I certainly don't want to harm him, though.
Well, it won't harm him, will it? Pointing out his mistakes, you already confessed it. You just told me you confessed it. That's unusual.
Yeah.
Many people deny. That's interesting that he confessed it.
Yeah.
Did he ever apologise to you or anything, or what?
That's hard.
Huh?
I'm not sure.
But
I'm
he
not
did.
Sure.
But he did confess it. That's
He
unusual.
confessed it, yes.
That's unusual. To whom?
To the police, to my mum, to... Yeah.
Not to you?
No, and to me.
You're all there. And what did he say?
He said, yes, I did do this. I'm sorry, what do you want to do?
Okay,
about
that's
it?"
unusual. Many,
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard in sexual abuse once, till their dying day they will live in denial.
Yeah.
So that's already unusual. That shows the quality of your father.
Yeah.
And he's got another wife.
Yes.
How long has he had another wife?
About 10 years, I think.
You never see him now?
No.
You don't know if she loves him or anything?
I would assume she does.
Oh, okay.
I hope she does.
Well then, you know,
Yeah.
then if you, so then maybe, well, no, maybe if you're going to write to him, you should tell him you love him and you forgive him. That's maybe the best thing you can do. That's the best thing to hear from him if you're ready for that.
Yeah.
Just to tell him, I don't want you to hide. This is being giving me a lecture. Back off. Mind your own
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
He's got his problems.
Yeah.
I think if you want to write, that's the kind of writing. If you feel like ready for that.
Yeah.
I love you very much. Thank you for all. Did he educate you and feed you and everything?
Yes.
So he did some good things. He was a good father in other ways.
Yeah.
Okay, you thank him for the good things he did. You completely forgive him for the bad things he did, and you hope he's happy.
Yeah.
If you want to write, and if you feel ready, that's a beautiful letter. Then he takes it the way he wants.
Yeah.
And he needs to be heard. He needs to be heard. He needs to hear that you forgive him.
Yeah.
That's very healing for his heart.
Yeah.
If you're ready for it, darling.
Yeah.
So you tell him you love him, thank him for the good things, because he did good things as well. That's our trouble with anger, and especially things like sexual abuse. We think it's we can't. Look, sexual abuse is such a huge thing in our culture. There's so much emotion about it, and then we tend to hate the person and think it's valid to hate everything about him. But then he did good things. He kept you alive. He kept the dinner. He bought the dinner, and he
I
worked.
actually also think that experience, even though people see that as negative,
Which part is him?
the sexual abuse and things, but I learnt
But that's no, I'm not discussing you now.
heaps.
We're talking about him. Of course you did. That's fantastic. You did. I get
Yeah.
that. Brilliant for you. We're looking at him.
Yeah.
So then, he did good things as a father. He had his stupid habits, hurting his
Yeah.
daughter. How fucking dare him, But he did. Okay? You've forgiven him. You tell him that. And you tell him, I hope you have a good life and I hope you're happy. And, we'll... That I think will be beneficial if you're ready for it.
Okay.
Rather than give me a lecture like, I hope you
Yeah.
stop running away. How do you know he's bloody running away? Maybe he's completely faced it. You don't know.
I wasn't
So don't
actually gonna say,
assume,
I hope you
darling.
don't.
What?
I wasn't going to say I hope stop running away. I was just going to say I hope that your life is wonderful.
Well, good. But
Yeah.
I think more than that, you've got to tell him you forgive him if you're
Yeah.
ready. You ready to tell him you forgive him?
Yeah.
Good, darling. Very wonderful. What a nice thing to do. Good for you, good for him, good for everybody. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Then you meet him next life and you'll be friends. Wonderful. Well done.
So our lives are mapped out for us, is what I'm
picking
Mapped
up.
out. Okay, that's very interesting, isn't it?
And
Mapped out
it's
as
really
opposed
our
to...
choices that we make in
Yeah.
what situation comes to us.
Start the sentence again.
I'm getting that
Uh-huh.
our lives are mapped out when we come here,
Uh-huh.
and that it's up to us what choices we choose to make with whatever comes into our life.
It's a good way of putting it, yeah. Yeah. It's like, I mean, I would like to use these, you know... Okay, yeah. Yes. Yeah, if at the time you're past death, the karmic seed that caused you to go to that mummy's womb, the karmic seed that caused you to have that daddy, that mummy, that abusive father over here, all the people who harmed you, helped you up until now, all those karmic seeds have ripened. It's like yeah. A bit like, you know, I often use this example. Like if you're a really brilliant gardener, that means you know what seeds will bring what fruits, don't you? And you could have a vision of the most beautiful garden, can't you? And you could, and then I know nothing about botany, never heard of it. And all I see is a barren ground. But you proceed to give me a vision of a perfect garden in 20 years. And I'll go, wow, you're clairvoyant. You say, no, darling, I just know the laws of botany. That's possible, isn't it? Karma's the same. Yes, that's exactly right. But each time you've got the chance to grow that seed, not grow it, to prune it, to not prune it, to water it. But you can only do with what you've got.
Yeah.
You only do with what you've got, you know. So do the best with what you've got, absolutely. Make clear choices every day based on wisdom, based on compassion, with what you've got, with what comes at you. Absolutely. Yes. That's the Buddhist approach. We're in charge. We created this garden, it's our garden, and we can grow the nice new one. It's up to us. So, it's interesting. It's a very different view, isn't it? I mean, it's different from the Christian view, and it's different in some ways, radical ways, but it's certainly different from the materialist view. That's very, very different. What else, folks? It's not 9 o'clock, but maybe you can even have nice, delicious cakes out there. All the cakes
Robina, for someone to try and see some clarity in their life and to work on their mind.
Yep.
When they're under the influence of prescription
Yes,
medication.
I understand.
How do you help them?
I understand, darling. How do you help another person? Well, you see, okay, how do you help another person, whether they're on drugs or anything else, is this whole business of what, you know, compassion is the wish to help. But your wisdom has to help you inform your ability to know them wisely and to know how to help them. So it depends on how severe the drugs are and how severe their mental illnesses is, isn't it? Absolutely, isn't it? So is this person capable of changing their mind, do you think? Or they really are extremely suffering?
Look, I think they're capable, and they've you've met her, my daughter, you saw her recently in Broome.
Okay.
And I guess...
What kind of drugs? Heavy drugs?
No.
Oh, you mean medical drugs? Prescription drugs.
Yes, for anxiety.
Oh, okay, lots of people take drugs, and I think it's okay to take drugs. Join the club, you know. Because I think some of the drugs can for sure help us. I mean, it's very interesting. You go to your Tibetan doctor, she'll feel your pulses, and she'll feel there's an imbalance of wind energies, and she'll give you a herbal drug. Not a drug, but it'll be a herb that'll help adjust the wind energies. So the principle is the same. But you're helping a bit of your physical, which helps your mind. So it's great if we can take things to help our mind, but then often the Buddhist approach will be that might help calm things down so that you can now do the job of working on your mind.
Yes.
That's for sure. So she was interested in what she heard. She was feeling it was possible for her to do. I mean,
she took in a lot of what you said.
Oh, okay. Then, I mean, I think depending on the drugs, and depending on how severe. I mean, the people are, really mentally ill and can do nothing, then nothing much you can do except protect them from themselves. But on anxiety drugs or on, depression, sure, there's plenty we can do. I think the one is to have the confidence to know that fine, take something to help you. Yeah. But now you can really start the work. You've still got work to do. If you're totally 100% rely on the drug, now it's all magic and fix or nothing you can do.
Yeah. Now her aim is to get off the drugs.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I know lots of people who can and do. So it's,
you can do it. You can help yourself, cure or work on your mind.
Yes.
Whilst you're still...
Of course you can. That's the point. Of course you can. Yeah. And fantastic. Nothing wrong. Of course you can.
Okay.
Yes. Right. Totally possible. Absolutely. Yes.
Just on the note of feeling compassion for people who maybe aren't taking full responsibility for their lives, their victim mentality.
That's right.
When you're talking to us here, we're a captive audience. We come here because we're ready.
That's right.
To hear
I
what you have
understand.
to say. But there's other people in our lives where we feel the same compassion, but we want to help help them in the same way.
That's right,
You know,
exactly.
how do we make movements toward that, or is it just like?
You've got to have the wisdom to know. First of all, again, really the point is this: have compassion, no question, but be so wary of our neediness that they be better, because we can't cope with their being an alcoholic brother or neurotic, and that's very tricky to see. You see, if we really understand the way attachment is this need. It's the simplest way of talking about attachment is this desperate need to only have the nice things. It's a junkie for the nice things, and it manifests in all of us in a multitude of ways. But it's a very deep drive, and that's why we can't cope when we see bad things. So some person, when they see bad things, they'll let's get depressed. The other person will shout and kick. They're both the response called aversion. Because attachment, the millisecond it doesn't get what it wants, a sick friend, alcoholic brother, war in Syria. You understand? The moment attachment doesn't get what it wants, when it sees upsetting things, it turns into aversion, which, oh no, I don't want to see. Either punch, kick, or I don't want to go, and you go inside. That's called aversion. And this is a real subtle process that happens 1,000 times a day. So when you've got your friend who's sick, whom you adore, or your daughter, or whoever it is, and you see their sickness, you have compassion, but it can be polluted by your neediness for it to go away for your sake. And it's hard to see the difference. So you've got to be so wise. You know yourself. If you've got, I mean, you know, when I was younger, and my mum and all my sisters always felt sorry for Robina. She was this weird old lefty, and she seemed to be a lesbian for a while, and liking all these boys for a while, and always running around the world. Didn't look like she knew what she was doing, and you don't understand that. All felt sorry for me. Well, I thought, what was there sorry? I wasn't damn sorry, you know. I kind of knew what I was doing in my life. I was going where I want to go, doing what I had to do. I felt some sense of what I was doing, and I was making my choices. But they felt sorry for me because I did it with some mould. That's very hard not to be seen as compassion, you know. They felt, and so I've got to be so cautious about that. So have real compassion, see the suffering, and then you check: is there something I can do to help? If not, love them for who they are. And then if you're really skillful, you'll get it. You might notice the window of opportunity coming. They might ask a question. You might have a conversation. But as soon as it's coming from patronising, the person's going to close away and go off, bugger off and mind your own business, please. And that's so tricky.
It's the trickiest.
Love them for who they are, please. Excuse me, we've all got problems. I mean, this is just so... And try to see their good qualities. Like I said before, stop seeing the alcoholic brother. See the kind, like your daddy. It's a really good example. Even the person who's abused us. I can see this is my father. Same kind of thing, you know. I always saw his good qualities. I'm so fortunate. I'm trying to be holy here. I saw his other qualities. But like I think if someone, I maybe talk to other people about being abused, it's like outrageous to dare say, how can a pedophile have any good qualities? We love to see only the bad thing. Well, the same kind of here. We love to see the poor self-pity thing. We have every person is more nuanced than that. The suffering person or the harmer, both.
So I'm quite a good listener and like empathetic, so I listen to people's.
Yeah, but sometimes that can be pathetic.
Yes.
Sometimes you just listen, honey, I've got to go. Bye.
I don't know when am I like? Is it?
That's your wisdom. No one can tell you,
Darling,
darling. That's your wisdom.
like
Yes, you can
allowing
be.
them to vent and,
Yes,
like,
you can
listening.
be. Yes, you can be. But that's your wisdom, and no one can teach you that but you. I'm sorry. That's what kindness mixed with attachment is like. It looks like it's kind. But you know, if you're a goody-goody, a nice person, you'll be doing that. But sometimes it's like, you've got to have, this is the one of, we talk in the West, what we say about barriers, this kind of business, you know.
Yeah,
it just means
boundaries.
less neediness for things to be, because you don't want to make upset person, you want to be a nice person. Excuse me, I mean, you know, here, you've got to be able to know the difference between their self-pity and where they're really helping, getting you to help them work something out. There's a big difference. But also, sometimes there's nothing you can do. Let them talk. Bye, sweetheart. See, I'm so sorry, but I'm sure... And then you'll go, I'm sure you'll work it out. I really admire your wisdom. You're really a strong person. Instead of, oh, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help you? Put it right back to them. We've got to learn this ourselves, darling. We can't teach it. It's your wisdom knowing your mind. Your fears, your neediness, your attachment. You know? It's not easy to have wisdom. That's your job. Do you understand?
I do.
Okay. Do your best. And learn from your mistakes.
Robina,
Yeah.
am I right in this? I just need a bit of clarification. the karma that we're going through in our lives at the moment, is that a direct
Result.
equivalent or result to what we actually did in past lives?
Well, darling, I mean, in general, if we look at these 4 ways that karma ripens, the one that's called experiences similar to the cause, in one sense, yes, if you see in your life that you get credit easily, people don't steal from you, you get a job easily, the Buddha would say that is the direct result of non-stealing. You get easily what you want, or also of generosity. If people never believe your words, clearly that's the experience of having lied in the past, even if you're telling the truth. Like with people on death row. Nobody believed them. Nobody believed these people. Even the husband got executed. I told you that part. That's from lying in the past and harming people in that way. So you can see it's similar, but in terms of quantity, maybe not, obviously. But it's in general not too complicated. If you've got a habit to lie, it's hardly rocket science that it's the habit from past lying. You know? The little boy who cried with compassion for the lice, we can deduce the Buddhist view that he'd vowed never to kill in the past, and he also had compassion, spontaneously. Another little boy, son of a friend of mine, the moment he saw fishing, he fell in love with fishing and spent the rest of his life fishing. Clearly he had a strong tendency to kill. So in that sense we can see it's very similar. You look at your own personality, and you look at the things that happen to you. I mean, there's only so many things that happen to us. It's either good or bad, kind or not kind, lie or tell truth, steal or not steal, kill or not kill, punch or not punch. I mean, there's more nuance than that, I know. But in general, you understand. You can kind of deduce. It's not that complicated. Broad stroke, you know.
Okay,
and karma is also personal. It wouldn't be possible for your father to harm you in that way without you having had harmed him like 500 lives ago, whoever what. And the Buddha said we've all met each other countless times anyway, so join the club, it's okay. We're all in this maniac thing together, harmed each other, helped each other. If we meet each other at different times, that's all.
Thank you.
All right, darling. I think it's time to have tea and cake. It's 9 o'clock. Okay, so we finish with another prayer. Let's sing a little prayer, like a bookend. We start with a prayer, we end with a prayer, or our dedication. We call that motivation. This is called dedication. So we think, okay, we've been here a couple of hours, 3 hours, whatever. 4 hours nearly. God. So we just kind of think, okay, the Buddha's sort of saying as many moments as there have been since we've been together is as many thoughts we've all had. So therefore it's as many seeds each of us has planted. Each of us has taken something different from this. How marvellous, We're the boss, not Buddha. So we think maybe nourish these seeds with our efforts, using any of these tools. And for me, it's the one to never give up with confidence in ourselves. Constantly have this confidence that it's possible. I can change no matter how what. And rejoice in our goodness. This is unbelievably important. But to never give up nourishing these seeds with our effort day to day in our lives, accepting what comes, being brave in the face of things. Never giving up on ourselves. So that these seeds will ripen in the future, in the development of our amazing potential for our sake and the sake of others. And the second little prayer is may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. Kewadi New to dark Lama Sangye Drugyune Droa Chikyan Malupa Deisala Gopasho Jangchok Samchok Rinpoche Maki Panam Kegyuchi Kepanyampa Nepayang Gongde Gongdu Evasho. Alrighty. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Thank you, Jason, for having us in your home.
Thank you so much for coming and with your clarity once again, just giving us these teachings, and we wish you a very long and happy life. And
Long and happy life. Good. I've only got a bit left. I'll do my best.
And we hope that you'll come back and give teachings here again.
Yeah, I'll be here next year. I'll be back next year. That'll be good. Why not? I'm happy. I'm still alive. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to your mummy for organising all the cooking and all the dear friends.
Yes, and to all the people who helped.
And thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And have a quick cake or a strawberry or something that's out there. I saw it on the way out.
Some people want to make offerings.
Oh, sure, please.